This chapter will help you to understand that people with dementia have the right to take risks within the context of their own lives, understand how people with dementia may be harmed, have an awareness of legislation and local policy and any actions you may need to take. We tend to assume that people with dementia aren't able to think, process information and make sound decisions. This makes it more likely that we are overcautious in how we work with them, and a safety-first approach is the biggest barrier to enabling people with dementia to have control over their own lives. In 2010, the Department of Health in England issued guidance which moves this negative approach to a much more positive one of risk enablement. This is based on the idea that measuring risk involves balancing the positive benefits from taking risks against the negative effects of attempting to avoid risk altogether. For example, the risk of getting lost if a person with dementia goes out unaccompanied needs to be set against the possible risk and consequences of boredom and frustration from remaining inside. It recognises the strengths the person has and builds on their abilities. It also encourages us to find creative ways to enable them to take risks. Central to this approach is the person with dementia deciding the level of risk they want to take. A person with dementia is similar to many other groups in society who may be at risk of harm from other people. This may be people close to them or working with them, and usually includes physical abuse, being hit or injured on purpose, financial or material abuse, such as theft or misuse of money, property or personal possessions, emotional abuse, for example, intimidation, threats, humiliation, verbal or psychological abuse, sexual abuse, the involvement in sexual activity that is unwanted or not understood, neglect, from not providing the basics such as food, clothing, attention or care, to the failure to provide appropriate access to health and social care, discrimination, treating people negatively because they are older, more frail or confused, and the misuse of medication, giving medication inappropriately, overdosing or withholding medication. Signs and symptoms of abuse may include injuries, bruises or weight loss, behaviour changes such as being withdrawn or depressed, self-harm, and a dishevelled or unkempt appearance. We can help to protect people with dementia and enable them to express their wishes. We can support them to give particular individuals the power to make decisions on their behalf when they are no longer able to do so. How is this possible? The Scottish Government has put in place a range of legal measures which enable us to take action to protect the person with dementia. You don't need to know the detail of these pieces of legislation, but it is important that you know they exist and that you report any concerns you may have to your manager. You need to act when you suspect someone is being abused or neglected, even if you're not certain it's happening. The following legislation applies: the Adults with Incapacity Scotland Act 2000, the Mental Health, Care and Treatment Scotland Act 2003, the Human Rights Act 1998, and the Adult Support and Protection Scotland Act 2007. We'll now hear from people with dementia about how important taking risks is to them.
And I can remember my doctor saying to me, oh, you shouldn't go out the house and you shouldn't do that, etc. And I said, look, that is stupid. Because if something happens to me and I'm in the house, what's the point? I'm better out the house, you know.
So, I mean, do you think it's a mistake for doctors, professionals and even family to say, oh dear, now you've got that, you shouldn't be doing that?
Oh yeah. I think it's destructive. I mean, people should be allowed to take a certain amount of risk. You've got to be allowed to stumble and fall occasionally. You've got to be encouraged to take yourself out the comfort zone where there's no fear, there's no nothing, but there's also no life.
Next, we'll meet Margaret. Margaret is 90 and was recently admitted into a community hospital. But this situation could easily occur in a nursing home, a hospital ward, or in a person's own home.
Sit down, Margaret. stay where you are.
I need to sort.
We don't want you hurting yourself again now, do we, Margaret? Come on now, Margaret, we can't have you walking about. You've already taken a tumble. We don't want you to get any more injuries, Margaret.
I'm fine.
How would you feel coming into this situation? So, what are the key learning points? Workers have a duty to ensure that people they're working with are safe. In protecting people with dementia from harm, it sometimes feels as though the only option is to prevent them from taking any risks. Preventing people with dementia from doing things they want to because they're considered too risky can result in the person feeling frustrated or distressed. Restricting a person's movements could also be viewed as restraint. Again, in our second visit to Margaret, we can see that small changes in our approach and a more positive response to Margaret's ability can make a big difference. These changes develop Margaret's sense of confidence and independence and the ethos of the environment she lives in.
Margaret, remember to take your stick.
Yes, yes. That's it now.
Thank you, Margaret. You're so good at spotting what needs done.
So let's have a look at the key learning points. Risk enablement. It's important to balance the risks to a person with dementia against their current capabilities and their right to engage in activities they enjoy. It's sometimes the case that staff and others involved with a person with dementia can be so protective that they can't see ways to balance rights and risks. There's often a way round these apparently impossible situations, and this can contribute a great deal to the quality of life for someone with dementia.